Hello, it is Thursday, July 29th, 2021. I'm Chris Remo, and welcome to my New York Times Crossword Daily Solve. It's a Thursday puzzle, so we're almost through the work week, and we're going to be getting a more challenging puzzle today, I suspect. And before I got started with today's puzzle, I wanted to address a couple of, I suppose a theme of comments that came up yesterday in response to the Wednesday puzzle. For instance, Carson Roach Howell writes, as someone who typically only attempts Monday and Tuesday puzzles, this one reminded me why I don't like the harder puzzles. Just a whole lot of trivia that is completely beyond me and things that barely make sense to me even after I get the answer. More frustrating than satisfying, but I suppose it just takes practice. And then John Radaman asks, how long did it take you to consistently be able to solve every day's puzzle? I recently started doing these New York Times crosswords, and I can complete most Monday and Tuesday puzzles, but all harder puzzles stump me. And then Churn similarly pointed out answers like Slip-On for Moccasin, Payne for Colonial Pamphleteer, Merck for the Chicago Exchange, Atra for the Gillette Razor Handle, and so on. And essentially said half the words or clues were completely unknown to me, and I just couldn't get anywhere. So it took me a while. I mean, in response to John Radaman's question, it did take me a while. It's only been, I would say, I've been doing the New York Times crossword for quite some time now, and it's only been until relatively recently, I would say, in my crossword solving career, so to speak, that I've been able to do particularly Friday and Saturday puzzles straight through without needing to look things up. But when I was doing, and then obviously the earlier you go, the more that would creep back into the midweek, for instance. And I don't think there's anything wrong at all with looking something up if you're struggling with a crossword puzzle. I mean, the whole point of these things is to be a fun challenge. It's not to be a brutal challenge. And one of the things I've found is that you end up learning sort of interesting trivia and little bits and scraps when you do look something up. And then you know it going forward. And if you see it in a crossword again, you'll know it. But now you know something that might not come up in your life frequently. It might not be a frequent topic of conversation, but it's one tiny little additional bit of knowledge that's bouncing around in your brain that might make a connection to something else somewhere. And I think that really ties back into what we were discussing a few days ago when we talked about that research published in the Neurology Journal that suggests doing crosswords can help mitigate the effects of dementia in older age. What you're doing is you're just keeping your brain limber. You're associating things. I think that's the biggest. There are two big, I think, maybe three, I suppose, big buckets of mental activity, I think, that the crossword uses. The most obvious one is trivia, knowledge. It's simply knowing facts and vocabulary, I suppose. And then another is a facility around language, I guess. So that's where the wordplay comes in. And obviously the wordplay in this type of crossword, a general knowledge crossword, isn't anywhere on the level of deviousness as a cryptic crossword, but there's light wordplay in these puzzles. And having a facility around language helps with that, but also doing these crosswords helps with that facility, which is nice. And then finally, the third thing, maybe the most interesting one, is associations. It's just connecting things, not necessarily wordplay in the sense of puns and clever interpretation of words, but just thinking about concepts from a standpoint that you might not think about if you were simply reading the sentence in a way that's meant to be as clear as possible and then moving on. Putting these sort of odd concepts next to each other can be, it really does, I think, help you think about things in a more holistic and complete way. And then there's sort of, I guess, almost a fourth subsidiary bucket of knowledge, which is just the crosswordese, just the words that only come up in the crossword, and that's the only time they come up. And that's Atra, for instance, the Gillette razor brand. And I apologize that we have to deal with those, but that's it. Sometimes the constructors need to resort to this sort of thing in order to create these incredibly complex and, I assume, very difficult to set grids of interconnected words. So that's sort of the tax. The crosswordese words, that's the tax we have to pay in order to have access to all the rest of it. And there isn't really a great shortcut to learning those. It is just, as one of the commenters said, it is practice and experience. But the other elements that go into solving these puzzles, I do think are worthwhile. I think they're worthwhile beyond the scope of simply learning how to solve more crosswords. I think doing the crossword has made me more limber with language, and in general has exposed me to sort of nooks and crannies of knowledge that I may not otherwise have needed or thought to look up. And then again, always worth remembering, there's nothing wrong with looking something up if you just need to get a puzzle completed, because we're not sort of proving something to ourselves here. I mean, I suppose by signing up for this series, I sort of am, which wasn't my intention, but in practice, doing these video solves does in some way make solving the crossword more stressful, because I don't have access to that ripcord, that parachute. But that's okay. I'm doing a particular thing here it's not relevant to your private solving, so just bear that in mind. Anyway, that was more preamble than I really intended. So let's just get going with today's crossword, which is by Trenton Charlson and edited, as always, by Will Shorts. And again, it's a Thursday puzzle, so going to be on the tricky side probably. Ready to get started. Okay. Founding member of the UN Security Council. USSR, I'm guessing, with 4 letters and an abbreviation. Let's see. Let's look at the crosses and see if that works out. Stumbling syllables. I frequently deploy stumbling syllables on this channel, and I guess that would be ums or us, but I'm not sure which. So let's put an S there and look at the cross. Native Rwandan. Hutu? Let's look at the crosses and double check that. Wouldn't settle, say. Sued. So if you sued someone in court, you wouldn't settle for, a payment, an early payment or something to drop it. Word with bacon or rumble. I don't know. I'm not seeing that. Apologies if you are. Let's move on for the time being. Chafes. Chafes, well, probably rubs something. Let's see. Let's look around here. Tesla, e.g. So here's some misdirection for you. This looks like, well, it looks like Tesla, the car company, because that's the Tesla we hear about every single day. But probably it's Tesla, Nikola Tesla, the historical figure so in this case, asking about his background, and he must have been, I suppose, a Serb, I think. And that's an example of kind of what I was talking about earlier. It's probably not good. I'm not accusing anyone watching the stream of having done this, but it's not great that we see Tesla and immediately think of the most current commercial version of that word because it presently is a brand name. It's good to also think about this in a different way. And remember, I mean, most of us know Tesla was also a historical figure. I'm not claiming that we don't know that, but it's good to think about things from a different context and not always put them in the most obvious context. I'll be both astonished and chastened if this turns out to be the car company and this is something else that I don't currently see. Let's look here just in case. Land blank. I don't know offhand. This is too long for me to be guessing around with, so I'm just going to skip it. Station. It could be a place, a spot. I don't know. It could be probably a few things. I'm going to move on. Fly by. Well, it could be fly in the literal sense, soar. It could be fly by as in time flies by, like whiz, time whizzes by. But I don't know. I feel as though there's too much freedom there for me to guess right now. School attended by Warren Buffett. I don't know where Warren Buffett went to school. Let's keep looking for now. Follower of catch or latch. I don't know. Misanthrope of Victorian literature. So this will be a literary character. Not sure off the top of my head without any crosses. So again, I'm going to keep going. And here, this is a puzzle where I'm just going to need to keep skipping around a bit until I find an area that allows me to latch onto it. Popstar Hallowell of the Spice Girls. This, I think, came up just days ago and is Jerry, I believe. Made an impression. So it has a question mark. So this is a punny sort of answer. And one thing that this could have been, if it were more letters, if it were 6 letters, could be etched, as in you made an impression in a physical material by etching into it. That's probably not what this is. It could be made an impression as in imitated someone's voice or mannerisms. So, for instance, it could be aped. And let's just look at that and see if we can do anything with it, if that is maybe right or wrong. What the verb ending ise isn't spelled with. So this is a sort of a clever clue. So what this is getting at is that in American English, typically the verb ending ise would actually be ize, as in utilize. We would put a z at the end of that if we're using American English. But if we're using British English, we would typically put an s rather than a z there. And not only would we put an s rather than a z, the z that we're no longer using we would refer to as a z. So I'm pretty sure that's what this is getting at. So the gist of something is, oops, sorry, I just realized I'm not giving you a very good view of the down clues. Sorry about that. I haven't been glancing at the monitor there. Okay. All set. Sorry about that. Gist. So the gist is sort of the crux of something, the nub of something, the core, but none of those fit and I'm not seeing it. So let's just go back to here. Flyby, it does look like it is probably whiz, ending with a Z or a Z. So the gist, perhaps this is simply the idea. The gist of a crossword, the idea of that crossword, its theme, perhaps one might say. Plugs. I'm not seeing this. Is it? Oh, I see. It's plugs as a verb, and it's a more colloquial meaning that is sort of plumping for something, stumping for something. Promoting it. So it is hypes. School attended by Warren Buffett. Okay. I wouldn't have known this with respect to Warren Buffett, but because a certain former president, I think, was constantly talking about how we went here. I think I remember it's Wharton, or that there is a business school, Wharton. So that's what that would be. I think. And then let's look here. Misanthrope of Victorian Literature, Hyde, as in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. So that's who that is. Land, blank. Well, this looks like it could be area. I mean, I want to say sort of disaster area, but that doesn't really follow land. Let's look at the cross here. Prefix with penultimate. Interesting. So the penultimate in a series is the second to last. Prefix with penultimate could be second best. Is it an alternative prefix that's used to indicate that something is the penultimate one? I'm actually not sure what that's referring to, so let's move on for now. Blank, more and more. I'm not sure. I wonder if there's some sort of theme that's going on here that I can't really that I'm not aware of yet. Could be. Okay, to vouch for. I'm guessing this ends with to, T-O, because O is sort of an unusual letter for a word to end on. And to seems like the kind of word that this phrase could incorporate. Let's look at this cross. Oh, prefix with penultimate, of course. I forgot. I'm just gonna keep going for now. What is this? Oh, chafes. Why is this difficult? It feels like it should be very obvious, but I'm just not seeing it. Some bouncers use them. Could be bouncers at a nightclub or something, but I'm guessing it's not. I'm guessing it's something else. Garment that typically has snaps. Valuable violins for short. Okay, this is sort of obscure knowledge, possibly. I think this is referring to Stradivarius violin, which is violin made by a very famous and acclaimed historical violin maker, and there are still extant examples of these violins, and they're very valuable. So that's the sort of thing you just sort of have to know. Station. Let's look back at this. Oh. Well, So if this is Hatu, then word with bacon or rumble. I mean, you could have a strip of bacon. Rumble strip. Strip rumble. Rumble strip. Is that a thing? Is that something that exists and I don't recognize it? This is certainly one of my slower openings, I would say, that I've done on this series yet. So fitting on a day when I addressed people talking about feeling unable to proceed in a crossword, because I'm demonstrating that. Chinese artist and political activist, Ai. So this is Ai Weiwei, who's been in the news a fair amount in recent years. Well, it fits in a lock. Could be a key, but that doesn't look like it's going to work with this W, but let's see. Grief. Yeah, so it's not key. So grief is woe. And also, it fits in a lock being key. Would be, to be totally honest, it would probably, it's a little too obvious for a Thursday, I would say, in general. Aid in balance. Well, with three letters and starting with an E, I'm going to say that in this case, the aid in balance is your ear, because the fluids in your ear actually are extremely important in helping your sense of balance. And it fits in a lock, so this will be an oar, as in a boat, used to row a boat, and the oar sits in what's called a lock that the rower sort of pulls against, I suppose. God depicted in a figure called an amaretto. Well, we've got a lot of clues helping us out here, because amaretto looks like it's related to love, amor, in many Romance languages deriving from Latin, and also we have it half-filled anyway, so it's probably Eros, the Roman name of the god of love. Civil War ships. I think this is Ironsides. I wouldn't know what the more proper term for that type of ship is, and maybe it's that. I don't know. But that seems right to me. Okay. I blank for one. This has got to be some sort of theme going on. These clues seem very vague, and the answers are long, and that to me suggests some kind of theme. Let's look back at this chafes. Rubs raw. If something chafes, rubs, if something chafes your skin, it rubs it raw. Okay, vouch for. This strads, I wonder if it could be stradi, sort of Italian plural. I don't know, I'm just going to, probably not, because we're abbreviating it. and nothing in the clue is Italian, but for now I'm just going to remove it just so I don't just on the off chance that it is not S. I don't want to. We have such little fill in this area that I don't want to steer myself incorrectly. Let. So I suppose this could be rental, as in I have a holiday let. I have a holiday rental, let being a verb that means to rent something out. Could be that, but could also not be. That's more of a... it's used in the United States, but I would say it's more of a British English thing. So let's look, the let, I mean. Bow making choice. So this probably wants a wood that would be used to make a bow. In other words, a bow that one would use to shoot an arrow, or a bow that one would use to play a violin, perhaps a Stradivarius. So it probably wants a wood. I don't actually really know what kind of wood is used to make bows. Could be ash or elm, perhaps. Accented approval. So maybe this is a loan word from another language that uses an accent. It'd be ole. Like in a sporting match, for instance, in a football match, when a goal is scored, people chant ole. Could that be what it is? Holland, who became Secretary of the Interior in 2021. I should probably know this, but I don't. Important info for concert goers. I'm sorry. Well, the ash would fit with rental here. Not sure. Big Four Bank for short. Big Four is the kind of phrase that refers to a lot of different things in a lot of different industries. This is probably Big Four Bank in the United States in particular. And it could be Citibank, Citi. Let's look at the crosses. Alternative to LLC. So LLC is a corporate abbreviation that stands for limited liability company. And another way of incorporating a company results in the the abbreviation INC for incorporated. So I think that's what that's getting at. Matcha, e.g. matcha, for instance, is a tea, Japanese type of tea. Where bursitis may appear. Well, this certainly is looking like knee, and that sounds right to me. So here we've got this I for one. I'm going to skip that. I blank for one. Yeah. Some bouncers use them. Well, so it probably ends with an S, right? Because it's plural. And again, it's so difficult sometimes to keep yourself from focusing on the obvious meaning, which we can sort of maybe guess that it isn't going to be here. It was very difficult for me, even having said, I don't think this means a bouncer at a nightclub. It was very difficult for me to get away from being preoccupied with that when I was looking at this clue. But just think about bouncers in a broader sense. Someone literally bouncing, going up and down. What might they be using to aid them? What about a pogo stick? Pogo sticks, some bouncers. So a station, in this case, it's going to be something to which you're assigned. Your station, your post, I think is what this is looking for. A follower of catch or latch. Why am I not seeing this? Out. I want to sort of say outs, but that doesn't make catch outs. The S doesn't make any sense. Garment that typically has snaps. Items in a travel kit. Boy, I really feel as though this follower of catch or latch should be obvious. Again, if you're all over this clue and you're yelling at me through the screen, I apologize. Follower of catch or latch. So a word that comes, sorry, not a word. Once again, getting too hung up on an assumption. In this case, words. It doesn't say a word, it says follower, which could be a combination. It could be the follower could be a collection of words, and in this case, it is onto, catch onto, or latch onto. Sorry, it took me a while to catch on to that clue. It really did. Okay, garment that typically has snaps. Well, now that we have the one, I'm guessing this is a onesie. Items in a travel kit. Toilet something, perhaps? What is this thing here? Land disposal area? Yeah, is that just a phrase and I'm just not familiar with it? That may well be the case. Land disposal area? That's probably, maybe it's not a theme. It's just a phrase I'm less familiar with. Bacon or rumble. This is looking more like strip. What is a rumble strip? I'm sorry if you know what a rumble strip is. I don't. Here we go. Vouch for, so this is Strads with an S, and this vouch for is attest to. If you vouch for something, you attest to it. You might not be able to attest to my crossword solving skills after watching this video. This sort of looks like presidents. What does that mean? Presidents more and more. There's a cat in this room. I don't know if you can hear the cat. Red rose. Well, rose is capitalized, so it's probably a name. And based on, in other words, Rose is probably a surname. And based on what we've got available here, I'm guessing it's Pete. This really looks like presidents. What does that mean? Oh, prefix with penultimate. I see. So this would be ante, as in an antechamber, the room before the place you're going. That's what that's getting at. So items in a travel kit. So it is toilet somethings, and in this case, it is toiletries, general things to use around the toilet. What is the, sorry, again, I'm really sorry if you're seeing this more and more. I'm not. Is it presidents more and more? Is there something else this could be? It must be that. I'm going to fill it in and remember that I don't know what this is if this puzzle doesn't complete and I have to come there and try something else. So well, maybe it is a rental. Looks like it, doesn't it? That would make this Ash. Oh, I haven't looked at this yet. Asleep. In quotation marks. Not sure what that's getting at. I blank for one. Let's just keep looking. Indicator of approval. Well, S made me think stamp of approval, but this is only 4 letters. Seal of approval, they're almost the same thing. So let's say let's try that. This be news something? Spots to keep watch. So we've got a question mark. So this is more of a pun as opposed to a literal interpretation. And so let's think of another meaning of watch. What about a wristwatch? Where does that go? Well, the clue's in the name. Your wrist. In this case, spots, plural, so wrists is also plural. We'll go back up to here. NATO alphabet letter in NATO. Well, so what this is getting at is the phonetic alphabet. Alpha, beta. Well, those are bad examples because those are both Greek letters. What are some other ones? P, I think, is Papa. I don't know. I never remember these. I'm sorry. But anyway, it's probably going to start with either N, A, T, or O, isn't it? And based on that, it looks like Oscar. Oh, so maybe Maybe Ironsides is wrong. And actually, I was I should have mentioned this at the time. I was sort of iffy about it because I wanted it to be sort of Ironsiders or something like that. I'm not saying it is Ironsiders. I'm just saying Ironsides, when this one's a plural, seems sort of weird because this didn't really fit up. Because that would imply that the name of the ship is Ironside, which I don't know, maybe it is. Maybe everything I'm saying will be proven ridiculous. But what else could this be if this is Oscar? What else could this be besides Oscar, actually? Let's look at this again. I don't know. It's probably Oscar. I'm just gonna move on for now, and we'll come back to it. Test format. Oh, here we go. Test format or a hint to understanding 3 of this puzzle's clues. Well, I wanted to say multiple choice, but that doesn't make any sense. Test format, or a hint to understanding 3 of this president's clues. Sorry, 3 of this puzzle's clues. I said presidents because I'm assuming presidents is going to be one of these. I don't know. When we have more crosses, this might be a little easier. Blank, or not blank, but Thurman of Gattaca. This is Uma Thurman, who was in that film, I guess. Civil War ships, iron. I don't know. With 44 down, only playwright to have a New York City theater named after him while still alive. Oh boy, I want to say this is Simon. Oh wait, right. So it's two. It's 2 names. It's the given name and the surname. I'm not going to go out on a limb on that with the double answer. Let's just wait until I'm more confident. Practicable. If something is practicable, can be used, so it is of use. U.S. Navy 01 abbreviation. Well, you don't. I don't know very much about U.S. military ranks, but I think even just being familiar with fiction might allow you to guess at this. If you have a cross in there, for instance, if you have this E, I'm guessing this is ensign, ENS, which is a rank you see pop up in fictional works all the time, including science fiction like Star Trek. Okay, Civil War ships, iron. Boy, it really wasn't Ironsides. Sorry about that. That name just sounded familiar to me, but I was probably remembering it from something else. Okay, turf. Well, turf. Could it be sod? Like dirt? Oh, okay. Civil War ships. I know what this is. Sorry. It's ironclads. Yeah, this is definitely the actual term. I'm completely wrong with Ironsides, and this now rings a bell. And what it rings a bell, honestly, I think for me, if I'm trying to sort of excavate the layers of my brain, I think probably where I was first made familiar with this was the computer game Civilization, I think, is probably where I first saw that phrase, if I remember correctly. Anyway, it looks like this NATO alphabet letter is Oscar for O. And test format, or a hint to understanding 3 of this puzzle's clues. So this looks like fill in the blank. Well, that's not helpful, is it? Is that helpful? What does that mean? I mean, it's a fill in the blank. This is certainly a fill in the blank answer. Is that it? Is that it? Or is there more? Oh boy. You remove the IN, what would that make? That wouldn't make anything. That would make presidents. That's nothing. What if you put fill in the blank? Fill more and more? Again, I'm sorry if you're seeing something blindingly obvious that I'm not getting. Pond dweller that can regenerate its eyes. Could that be a newt? Unlikely trick taker. So this might be a trick in a card game. When you take a trick, you sort of win the I don't know, round, I suppose, by playing the best combination of cards or card. Could it be twos? Twos are unlikely to win. I would think that would be unlikely trick takers, though, so maybe that's not correct. A soap opera, e.g., soap opera, for example, it's a serialized work. There are many episodes of it. Hurricane level winds on the Beaufort scale. Well, we don't need to know anything. We don't need to know much about the Beaufort scale to know that this is probably going to be a number. And because it's on a scale, and because it starts with TW, I mean, there aren't very many numbers that start with TW and are this many letters. It's not 2, but it could be 20 or it could be 12 come to mind. So unlikely trick taker. Tree? Is that a slang term for something? Like hair at salons. Should be very obvious, but I'm not seeing it, so I'm going to move on. One of a Roman septet. So this refers to the 7 hills of Rome. Roof part. So you've got eaves on your roof. So now we see this is 12, and the hair at salons is styled. So actually fairly straightforward. I was trying to look for something a bit more complex than that, unnecessarily. On hold. So if you put something on hold, a way to say that is you table it. You table it for future discussion. Something is on hold, it is tabled. Deputies. So your deputy might be your aide, someone who helps you in a professional context or sits in for you. Anyway, aides. Olympics event whose participants shoot for the goal. Skeet shooting, I suppose, right? Make yourself comfortable, in quotation marks, that would be sit. Mushroom eaten with udon. So this is a Japanese mushroom, we suspect, because of the Japanese dish being referenced. Enoki. Barely manage without. I'm going to barely manage this puzzle. I'm going to eke out this puzzle today, it looks like. Point of a dancer who's on point. So if a dancer is on point, they're on their toe. Important info for concert goers. Well, show dates looks like it could be a feasible answer, but that looks odd with this cross here. So what about tour dates? Important information to know. So this let is rental. Okay, I was very reluctant to put that in, but that's what it is. Accented approval. This OS looks odd. I'm not crazy about that. Now that we have that tour dates, I'm more inclined to think this is Olay. So could this be Ald, as an Alderwood? Is that reasonable? Holland, who became Secretary of the Interior in 2021. Could be Len, Leah, Lee. Asleep. Not seeing this. What else could this be? Oh, sorry. Boy, that was dangerous. This let isn't rental. I don't think anyway. I think it is rented. So this is very tricky. Let, and actually, you know what? I think my instinct about using let as a noun in this case, I think that is a more British usage than American usage. So I think my initial instinct was correct, but then I didn't think about what let could also mean. In other words, let is also describes something that happened in the past. I let my apartment yesterday. I rented it yesterday. So this could be D-E-E, this name, Holland, who became Secretary of the Interior. And that bow-making choice becomes much more plausible as elm, I think. So now, asleep. What is that? Asleep. Well, we can see this cross. I mean, this can't be anything other than newscaster, right? I mean, there's no other possible word that could go there at this point. Oh, okay, I forgot about this playwright to have a New York City theater named after him. I was correct with Simon. I don't know why I wasn't more confident about that. But it's Neil Simon who wrote, for instance, The Odd Couple and many other plays. So asleep, I see. Asleep in quotation marks. This is meaning asleep in a sort of slangy sense. Numb. I think if you're numb, you're asleep, I guess. All right, and that's the crossword. So we have completed a crossword without my understanding what the theme is or how it works. This is embarrassing. So we've got fill in the blank, which is a hint to understanding 3 of this puzzle's clues, one of which must be presidents, one of which is clearly newscaster, because this doesn't make any sense. Oh, no. Oh. I'm sort of scratching at the edge of this. Is it... All right. Is it fill in the blank? If we put the word fill in this blank, this becomes I fill, which, as you might actually remember from a recent crossword on this very series, Gwen Ifill is a journalist, in this case, a newscaster. Is that what that's getting at? It is. Fillmore. Oh, wow. This clue is extremely clever, because this more and more is a real misdirect. But what this is getting at is Fillmore and more. And actually, when you look at these clues, I completely missed this. This is me. I missed this entirely. There's actually no space between the blank and what abuts it. So you can see there's no space here between this blank and more. So that actually indicates it's a single word, in this case, a proper noun, Fillmore, Millard Fillmore, former president. And then here, I fill, Gwen Ifill, but it's a single word, and it's even the first word in the clue, so the I is capitalized, so it's accurate in terms of being a proper noun, in terms of being a name. And then let's see, disposal area. Yep, we've got landfill, disposal area, landfill, somewhere where waste is disposed, and there's no space between land and the blank. So wow, okay, very clever, very tricky. I mean, pretty tricky for a Thursday, I would say. Some of the puzzle was, some of it wasn't, but this is pretty tricky. And I did struggle with this puzzle, I would say, a bit. Definitely had some real resistance there. So interesting, very interesting, really clever, Trenton Charlson. Very, 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 very tricky theme. Or maybe not. Maybe to you, maybe you saw that quickly. I'd be curious to hear who did see that quickly and what their thought process was, because it took me a while. I had to complete the entire puzzle. It certainly didn't help me fill these answers, but pretty rewarding to ultimately figure it out, I have to say. So well done, Trenton Charlson. And I'm going to wrap this up because I had all that preamble at the beginning and then a longer solve than is often the case. So I do hope that you enjoyed today's puzzle. I do hope you've been enjoying the series. I hope you're getting something out of it. I know that if you aren't accustomed to doing this crossword every day, or maybe haven't been doing it for a long time, I do understand that there are elements of it that are counterintuitive. There are bits of knowledge that are obscure or culturally specific. Practice helps. Practice helps, and it does get really satisfying to be able to sort of run through a crossword. And some of the knowledge is really crossword specific and only really ever applies to crosswords, but more of it is interesting things that you could maybe look up and learn about. And I'm doing less of that because I'm doing this on the solve on the video. I'm not looking anything up to sort of broaden my knowledge, and that's a shame because I could be, and that would be interesting. But obviously, that wouldn't work very well in this format. That's fine. I've done enough of these puzzles. I can deal with it. But there's nothing wrong with looking something up if you need the help, or just because you filled something with crosses and you're curious what on earth that thing is. So don't worry about it. Go ahead. It will help you get better, and then you'll have to do it less. And you can do it purely out of interest and not out of necessity. So with that, I hope you've been enjoying the series. If you have, please subscribe to the channel, and then you will see each of these videos as they're posted each morning. If you do like the series and appreciate it, why not pass it on to a friend and let them know that you've been enjoying this sort of odd thing, and maybe they would enjoy this very odd thing as well. You never know. And if you're particularly enjoying it, if you could toss me a couple of quid or a few bucks via my Ko-fi donation page, which is linked underneath the video, that will help me, as we go forward, turn this into something sustainable that I can commit to doing over the longer term, which is something I'm hoping that I can figure out, even as I think I mentioned yesterday, my schedule becomes a bit more constrained in the coming weeks, and I'm hoping that will not impact this series, and I'm hoping I can just keep this thing going throughout. So we'll see, but that is my hope and my current intention. So thank you for joining me. I'll be back tomorrow for a Friday puzzle, which I hope is not too much harder than this, because this did give me some trouble, and I hope you join me. So with that, have a great Thursday. Take care. Hello. It is Thursday, July 29th, 2019. No, certainly not.